Now, this is interesting because so far what we have seen is try and except. Now, there is one additional else that we can add to that. So, on the left hand side, what we have is a try block which has the line of code x is equal to 1 plus 1. After that, we have an except clause, which is the exception name there is type error, and there's a print statement inside of it. And following the except block, that is after that except block, we have else statement which has a print statement in it. So when the try block runs, if there is no error generated as we would expect in the left hand side, 1 plus 1 is 2, there's no error there, no exception is raised, and so the except block after the try block is ignored, and then the run is passed on to the else block where it will print the code that's run the code that's inside of the else block. And here we have the print statement, and so in the output what we see is else is here. That's the print statement inside of the else. However, if there is an error in the try block, as we see on the right hand side now, in this side, we have the try that says x is equal to 1 plus a. And in this case, what's going to happen is 1 is not going, we cannot add the integer to a string, and so that will raise an error, which is the type error. And so that type error would be matches the exception that we have mentioned in the except clause right after the try block. And so the code inside of this except block would get executed, and so we see this is a type error. And so in this case, the else statement that is there is ignored. And so this is what's in the docs. If you can see in the line below, the use of the else clause is better than adding additional code to the try clause because it avoids accidentally catching an exception that wasn't raised by the code being protected by the try except statement. Okay. So there are the use of else is helpful uh, if you want to kind of have more control over how to catch the error that's being generated or exception that is being raised. Here is another else clause that we can see, and what we have is the try, except, else, the three clauses as before. The difference is that these are now inside of a for loop, and this for loop is iterating over this particular list, this dot argv, and what we are looking at the values from item at index number 1 onwards, and these are the two values in it. So that's the value, first value, and then these entire these two lines, that's the second value. So when we run this code for the very first time, the value of arg is going to be minus f, and we are trying to open a file with the name minus f, and that's not going to work, and that will throw an error. It'll raise an exception that is going to be an OS error. And so after this, the control will be passed to the except block, and the error exception name would match. And so what we see in the output is the print cannot open minus f, and so that's what we have, cannot open minus f. And in this case, the else would be ignored. Now in the second iteration, this is the complete path to the file, and that path will be in the args. And so this time this would work and there won't be any exception raised, so this block would be ignored and the control will be passed to the else block. And then here what we are printing is the args, which is the line, this entire args value in the arg, that's the file name, and the word has, which is here, has length f dot read lines, and we have the 12 lines printed out. So that's the use case for using the else clause inside of a for loop. So take home message in these two slides is that If there is an exception raised in the try block, then the except is triggered and the else gets ignored. Otherwise, the else will get executed.